Hello, people, and welcome to another late night edition of Boiler of Passion, where me and George, unfortunately, CK can't be with us today, but he'll be back soon, hopefully. But me and George are going to preview this PSV game, and it's going to be an early one. It's going to be 6 o'clock. I'm going to be there. I know a couple people are also going to be there, but it's going to be an interesting journey to get there. I'm going to
Mm.
be leaving mine at 4:30, which is going to be interesting. It's never really done that. It's an interesting time midweek. So yeah, I mean, what are you thinking, George? How are you feeling about today's game? And just quickly, another game in hand on the Spuds, and they're still 4 points behind. So it's good times. But yeah, how are you doing, buddy?
Yeah, good, mate. Not too bad. The table's not, too much bad reading when you have a look at it, right? I think not just, Spurs, but also Chelsea game drawing as
Hmm.
well is pretty decent for us too. I think if you had to draw results or fixtures on paper, I don't think you could have gotten much better in terms of, what we needed for ourselves. I just can't celebrate a United win ever. So,
Yeah,
um,
it was tough. It was tough celebrating that.
yeah, no, but you know what? Look, at the end of the day, like, I think Antonio Conte has just been playing really poorly, and his lines are just way too deep. And United have to get praise for what they've done, but in general, of course, Virgil van Dijk doing his best to stop that Bowen penalty. But you know what?
By the
We
way, I
moved
don't know if you watched that game, but Declan in that game was
phenomenal.
everywhere,
Yeah,
everywhere, right?
I,
And I've been having arguments on it. Apparently we're the same person, George. Apparently we're doing all the same things. But in all sincerity, Declan is he's a phenomenon, isn't he? He's what the best under 24 central midfield talent in the world, and we have this alignment, I think, on the conversation between profiles, and this is the thing we can get into for hours. So just quickly, just talk about it because I want to talk about some of the profiles in this PSV team as well, in Xavi Simons and Cody Gakpo as well. But quickly, um, the whole left center midfield, six right center midfield debate. I mean, how are you looking at it? For me, and I know yours is pretty similar. Um, I think we have the talents, the qualities to flip our dynamics around, and I think you explained this very well. So I'll let you just talk about it for a couple of seconds before we get into the game.
Well, I mean, quickly, it's more a prediction about where we're going to be going because I think when you have a look at who we have right now, but also who is going to be coming into the team in terms of our next,
Mm.
number 8 prospects in our profiles, when you have a look at the collection of eights that we have in terms of Emil Smith Rowe, Fabio Vieira, Martin Odegaard, Grant Xhaka, Charlie Patino, and then you look even further into some of the youngsters that are coming through, Miles Lewis Skelly, Ethan Waneri, the latter of which has trained with the first team quite a bit and is in first
Yeah,
team
both
training
now.
prior.
Even Martin's coming through and training with the first team a couple of times now as well.
Yeah, no, Miles has been through
I'm sorry,
several
Miles. Thank you.
times,
Yeah.
this week, but, Ethan everybody knows because they've seen him, but, Miles Lewis Skelly is just another prospect that I think isn't far away from a debut himself.
Mhm.
But, look, just in general, everyone's gonna have their opinions, but, I think Charlie Patino, when you have a look at it, for me, he is best on the left central midfield as kind of this all-action controller. He isn't best in terms of a final third, player or a final action player, and I don't think he's best as an anchor. He's somewhat of that all action in between, and he's shown that quite a bit on his loan already with Appleton as well. Only a few times has he played on the right. So then when you have a look at it, Emil Smith Rowe, Fabio Vieira, both players that can play a controlling role, but are better as final action players on the right. And it's really only Martin that would struggle in a transition here. So when you're looking at kind of the future of the midfield role in terms of what we need, and even in terms of the six, everybody's going to have preferences in terms of what we have. Um, but ultimately for me, every player has biases, and what
Yeah.
you're looking at right now is you've got to look at why a player is operating in a specific zone, and if it's instinct or is this something that is demanded because of his team. So when you have a look at can Charlie, Charlie Patino can attack the box. As Shaka, he's shown it on his loan. He's had a goal from
Even
attacking
this, even the Sunderland game, his goal came from a third man run.
his
Like he
debut. Yeah, he
yeah.
can totally do it. It's just for him, he's more of a player that kind of thrives, not so much I would say in tight spaces, but he thrives in space and he thrives in like choosing the tempo, creating the right pass, and he's always got like 3 or 4 steps ahead of but where he
Mhm.
wants to go. He's not an explosive player per se. I think if he was explosive, he'd be an insane talent. That's really the only thing that he's missing. But he's
Before
got excellent
yeah.
ball striking and a really great tackling technique, which would serve him a little bit better um, deeper. But the only thing is, I don't want to spend too much time on it
No.
because this is PSV and this is the PSV preview. And so mainly for this though, kind of what it transitions us into is a discussion on, Vieira as well as Lakunga deep in that six, because that's probably what we're going to be seeing, tomorrow in terms of
Shall
like
we put the lineups up? Do you
yeah.
wanna quickly just yeah, I'll get it, don't worry. But yeah, here we go. Yeah, this
So
is what we think is gonna happen, and
this
I
is a
just wanna
little bit of
quickly
hope,
mention
I
yeah.
must admit, because, I will say, like, the whole thing with Cedric having not started in so long, he's been in training now for about a week and a half, I would say. So,
Mhm.
for me, if he is gonna have a time, this would be the time to play him, and I think it would actually serve Marquinhos quite well, by the way, because I think Marquinhos, in terms of his last debut at home, it was his last like, it was his only Emirates debut, you don't have more of those, but, it was the only time that he's played in front of a crowd, and I think he was pretty subdued. He definitely didn't follow up his second European performance in the way that he did with the first. And so I think having another Portuguese player kind of behind him and also beside him and Fabio Vieira in terms of that quartet, I actually think could be really beneficial for him to kind of show a little bit more. And he's going to have to, because I think Cody Gakpo is a serious threat. So is Xavi Simmons on the wings. I think in terms of watching PSV, I'd be lying if I'm an adequate watcher of the two. But I think those two talents are something that I've definitely looked at. And, especially
Should we
with
split
Gakpo.
them?
Um,
'Cause do you wanna split them? Do you wanna do Simmons and I'll do Gakpo? Because you know Simmons much more than I do.
Yeah, sure. Yeah, we can do that.
So you go first. I mean,
So
Xavi Simmons.
so Xavi Simmons, he kind of got on the screen with, as a PSG youth talent, and he's definitely somebody that have has goals in him himself. I think he's been really really good this season. I think he's got an interesting kind of contract situation as well. I believe too, where it's almost a case of he can choose to go back to PSG to PSG kind of on his own at the end of the season. But he's an explosive player. He's got really beautiful feet and he's got excellent ball striking. And for me, he's going to be a serious danger man because he can create separation at will. This is a guy that we definitely have to track really quite well. And I think, if we have essentially Tommy Asu kind of at left center back or Gabriel, and we'll have that debate, kind of all depends on Cedric, really. Like, is Cedric fit or not? If Cedric's not fit, then you have Tommy Asu go back to his right back position, and you basically have Gabriel having to do double shifts as well. But I do think that we're going to have to pay attention to the wingers in this case because these guys have a very much B Tech Liverpool setup of 1920 or 1920, 2019 and 2020 season, where you've got really high flying wingers, but they've got a fairly flat midfield behind them, and they just allow their front line to kind of do the work for them. So we're going to have to make sure in cutting off the supply because it is something to worry about. I think um, in terms of Xavi Simmons as a player, he's somebody that can go in and out both sides. He's very
Yeah.
much a tricky winger. He's got very good feet in kind of tight spaces. I wouldn't call him ambipedal. Really, he does have a favored strong foot, but what he does have is he can unlock a pass, but also through a quick carry or a dribble, he can get out of tight spaces really easily. So it's a player that I really like, by the way, as a prospect, just in general. I think he's going to be a significant danger. And so Kieran Tierney at left back is going to be important in more ways than one, not just because I think he deserves a cameo, and we've been saying it for a while, but to go up against Xavi Simmons, I think it's going to be a stern test. And so what I don't want to happen is to kind of make our left-hand side be extremely static, which is what we've seen when we've had Tomiyasu there. Um, but I'd like to see Kieran kind of push Xavi Simmons back a little bit more in a sense of he's a competent 1v1 defender, but also the threat that Kieran will take in the final third will mean that Xavi Simmons will have to be tracking back, and that's not something he does especially well. So he is one of those talents that is beautiful on the ball, but off the ball he's susceptible. So if we can kind of isolate that side, I think that's where the space is going to be a little bit more. And I'm happy that Reese Nelson will be kind of there to help, kind of on the left, because for me at least, Reese Nelson, he has to do better. He's been more aggressive recently in specific Europa League
Yeah.
cameos, but he is somebody that'll help and track back. So I'm kind of I'm happy about that. But Xavi Simmons is definitely somebody to keep an eye on because he can make the difference, especially if you give him space down his side, or even if you don't. If you give him breathing room, he will hurt you. So yeah, that's definitely something to look at.
Before we get into Cody Gakpo, do you know why I gave you Xavi Simmons?
Why?
Because I didn't want to say PSV and PSG consecutively again and again. It was not something that, that I wanted to do. But moving on to Cody, because Cody is someone that we've been on our radar, I think for at least 6 months now. his name started popping up in March a lot, and then when you hear links popping around in March and April, you kind of know that's kind of what's kind of on the radar for the club. Um, Cody is someone that can go, but he loves being basically off the left. He can play. He can go both ways, but loves jinking inside onto his favored foot and then hitting the ball. Very, very clean hitter of the ball. He's a great hitter of the ball. I think he's only second in goals and assists to Erling Haaland this season. So he's smashing the Dutch league, and he's someone that's on the names of quite a few clubs. Man United is keen. I know Leeds were very close to signing him. I think Southampton were in at one point. But Cody is someone that if you give him the ball, he has electric pace. He has something that a lot of players want in terms of being able to not only hit it off the dribble, but he can also hit, stop, and then go again. Because a lot of players kind of use momentum into their shot, and just go into their shooting action quite quickly. But Cody has this great ability to shift, stop, and then go again. He's very good stopping, which is a
Mm.
very good quality to have. He's very good in terms of shooting from outside the box as well. He's not just someone that will get in. He likes making those out to in runs, isolating the right centre back, getting in between the channel between their fullback and the right centre back. Which is why personally I don't really want holding there. I just think that if there's one issue where we
Mm.
need to kind of go strong, I think maybe that right centre back would kind of be the way. I think I'd personally go White and Cedric, because I just think that I don't want holding isolated on him at all. Because I just think that he's their best threat. I mean, what do you think?
I mean, the thing with Cody Gakpo is he's somebody that does like to come inside,
Yeah, a lot.
like a lot, and he's good at turning people. But I wouldn't say he's explosive. So one of the things, like when I was watching him, and people were saying, he's this explosive winger. Look, he's got pace, and if you give him space to run, he can eat up ground well. But he's not explosive off the turn. And he does typically when he does come inside, he looks with like a quick swivel or a one touch play in motion. He'll look to transition and roll you physically, but he's not somebody that's going to be explosive off the start. So for me, it really does depend because I think Tomiyasu is going to be the main 1v1 down there if he is the right back. Or if you've got Cedric and Holding, that is something to worry about for me. And it could be something that, McCall even thinks of, even if Cedric is ready, that they would prefer Tomiyasu to be right back and have Gabriel at left center back only because of that 1v1 with Gakpo, where you don't like, Cedric and Holding there. And at least with
Mm,
Holding, if you've got Tomiyasu, there's kind of our best 1v1 defender. You shut down Cody Gakpo, I think PSV struggle. In general, when you kind of look at PSV, they're a team that scores lots of goals. Of course, they're very dominant in their league, but they definitely have half as many points away from home as they do versus their home record. So they've got 5 wins and a perfect record, at home.
mm.
But when you look away, they don't have as many points. They've got half as many points. So like they can struggle away from home, and they do rely on Cody Gakpo to kind of really dig them out of trouble. Their last fixture was 2 wins versus Zurich, but they drew against Bodo. And the Bodo draw was kind of themselves at home. So
I mean, I don't know if you did you watch that Rangers game? Because I did. The second leg I did. I watched the PSV leg, and it was very much a back and forth affair. There wasn't any sense of control in that game. It was very much you have it, we have it, you have it, we have it kind of game. It wasn't very
yeah,
sort of there wasn't a lot of controlled possession. I think both teams were nervous, looking to get in the Champions League, and they really, really just it was kind of one of those everything on the line kind of games where it was you just someone is going to win, and yeah, it was a tough game, and Rangers won it. And look, I'm not saying that they're going to be bad, but we've seen how. I mean, I watched. I had to
they
watch
are
Rangers
reliant
for
on their match
Liverpool.
winners. Like I will say they're
Yeah,
extremely
this is
reliant
the point.
on
Yeah,
Cody
this is what I was
Gakpo.
going to get into, because a lot of I don't think defensively they're sound at all. I think
No,
like you were mentioning to me off stream, they block space well, and I agree with that. The thing is I just don't feel like their defenders are technically secure enough.
Well,
or are good enough in duels to
I'll
really win the ball back in
I'll
enough.
throw out the lineup because what I
Mhm,
see them doing. Look, they've got Sangare, so this is everybody who loves to talk about Ibrahim Sangare. He's going to be there
mhm.
for everybody to see. There's a lot of players that are exciting that people know well, but I don't think are at the same level as people think. So you're looking at your Sangare, your Simmons, and your Gakpo are going to be the three names that are popular vote. But I think here Veerman kind of determines whether or not it becomes a very flat
The thing
three or
is, we don't even know if he's fit. This is the other thing. If we don't know about Veerman's fitness,
I have a
I'm pretty.
feeling he is fit, to be honest with
Mhm.
you. I think it's just mind games, but typically, he'll drop in to make it a flat three if they are defending on the front foot, and they do well. But again, I think for me, I haven't watched them enough to be confident, to be honest with you. But their backline does leak goals, and this three is quite flat, but it becomes very attacking with Veerman
Yeah.
joining the attack with Till if they're able to stretch the game. And between Veerman and Till, they do look to release their wingers kind of as two dual backboards. And that's why I kind of mentioned they're kind of like Liverpool of old. Not this season, but the seasons before. And they do look to release their speedy wingers into space. But I think for us, the one thing I'll say is Eddie Nketiah is going to be super important in this game. Um, and I think that also Kieran Tierney for me is going to be very, very important down that left because Sangare will drift towards their right. And Simmons, those two are going to be people that you're going to look at to see if they can release each other. They're going to build mostly down the right, and then they look to release Gakpo down the left. So if we can stop them building, then you basically cut their one major form of attack. And of course, Gakpo will have space. We will play a high line. We won't be afraid. And so Gakpo will have space to run into. But the thing is, if you stop the ball and the entry pass into Gakpo, I think
Mhm,
he'll be very, very good. I think we'll be fine with it, to be honest with you.
mm.
Again, I think the big question mark is Cedric or not. And that for me does worry me. I will say, I do think even for this game and even for the surrounding fixture, if we can still have Tommy Yasu at right back, I probably prefer it a little bit more, even if Cedric is fit. It would help us so that we don't have to have Gabriel play another game. But Gabriel's pretty sturdy in terms of fitness, so I'm not really worried if we have to force him to play another game. But how about for yourself, Kern? Like, what's the one last major battle that you're looking at yourself?
So the main one is obviously the right centre back versus whoever it is at right centre back versus Gakpo. But for me, I would say the whole thing is if we go back to I just took it down because I wanted to see your lovely face. But um, if we look at it, I just reckon that for me, even though it's not like probably the most important battle on the pitch, the most important battle for our squad will be Nelson versus their right back. I want
Mm.
to see what he does. I want to see if he has this ability to be a bit more aggressive, just take on your man, be that guy that doesn't just tap and pass the left back. I want to see more than just combination play. I want to see some aggressiveness. I want to see them getting into the box, making something happen, or
If
making some
anything,
out to
he's
in
the
runs,
one.
like something.
Yeah, if anything, he's the one with experience, having been at Feyenoord, last season.
Yeah,
So when you do have a
for
look at
sure.
it, he's the one that should have an inside track at least on several of these players. So he has to show something. And I agree with you. I think for me, I do look at Fabio Vieira. I think he's going to have a really good game here
Mhm.
because we're at home. We're going to dominate possession. I think when we do that, we give chances to our top end of the pitch to kind of finish. And I think both him and Nketiah need to show a little bit more if they want to push for areas in the starting 11 because it's going to be super competitive at that area and that end of the pitch. And I just think that it's not really Eddie's fault, but he did have a poor game last time out with Bodo. I think the whole team suffered, by the way. Like it wasn't just him. I'm not singling him out, but I think if he's somebody that wants to claim that spot from Gabriel Jesus, he's got to put himself about a little bit more and maybe dominate on the big stage. And when we're at home here, I'm never really worried about our ability to kind of control games because I feel that these guys have draw confidence from the fans. And I think that's a good place to kind of lead into predictions. So in general,
I
what
haven't even thought of
where are
it.
you at?
Jesus.
What's your predictions?
I'm gonna go 2-0. I think 2-0 is fair. I think they're a good team. I don't expect them to be very I know their thought and their philosophy is to be on the front foot and attack, and I just don't think they have the ability to do that. I think they'll leave space. I think they'll leave I know you are more you're more on the they'll cover the wide areas a bit better. I don't think they will. I don't think. I mean, our main method of chance creation this year has been through the wide areas, and I don't see that changing. Um, I don't know what their line looks like in terms of how high it is, but if it is fairly high or high-ish, like you'd expect a Dutch team to be, I expect there to be space. And if there's space available, I think Marquinhos and Fabio Vieira can get on and work that right hand side. I think even Reese could make a run or do create something. I think we have enough in all areas of the pitch in terms of either going forward in terms of a set a set final third attack or in transition attack. I think we have the facility to do both, and I don't think they have the capability to handle that. And like, could Gakpo get a goal? Sure, but I don't think they'll have the ability to find him with regularity like they'd want to. The only thing that is stopping me from going a bit higher is I could think maybe Lokonga vacating his area and Gakpo kind of moving centrally and being found. That's the only way I can see them sort of creating a goal out of that sort of situation.
Well,
What
I
about
hope he
yourself?
has a good look, I hope that, Sambi has a good game. I think people think that we give him a hard rap here on the show, but, it's just I think it's time for him to show a little bit more, impetus in possession. I don't want him to be safe. You're at home, so I do want you to show a little bit more verticality in your play. I don't do it at the expense of play and don't do it at the expense of being transitioned on, but I just think that he's been a little bit too safe in this position. I know he's not comfortable here. I know that we all know that he's better higher up the pitch, but I just want him to kind of continue on from his Bodo game because for me, he was one of the better players on the pitch. Even though
Yeah.
the team was poor, Sambi did well last time. So let's follow that up with a really strong performance. For me, I'm going 3-1. I actually do see Gakpo potentially scoring a goal in transition. I think the space that we leave behind and also Sambi, again, he is a worry as much as I want him to do well. Like he is a worry in transition, and I can see us letting a goal through, but mainly because we haven't really kept any clean sheets at home. Away, we've been excellent. We've had something like 4 or 5 clean sheets away out of 6 or something like that. So,
Hmm.
at home, we do tend to actually concede. So I think we'll get a goal scored against us, but I do think that we'll score enough. I think it'll be 3-1. So classic BoP users know my favorite score line is in play right now. But yeah, I think that's pretty much it. When you're looking at it, I'm excited to see the PSV team. I will say, like, I'm not too worried in terms of the threat that they might
I just
pose.
want to beat Rude at the Emirates. I just want to beat him. I want to beat Van Nistelrooy at the Emirates. It's just
Well,
a little dig from me, but
I was gonna say, like, I think it's a storyline current. Like, I'll be honest with you, like, I think the crowd is gonna give him dogs abuse. I
oh, I
really
will.
do.
I'll be in the upper tier shouting his name. But yeah,
Look, it's gonna
um,
have an effect for me, at least. I think it's gonna have a very similar Mikel Arteta effect at Anfield, where I do think that the manager presence and the narrative surrounding that may draw a little bit of added energy to the squad, which I think is really nice because I think
I
that
will say
these
one thing
deep
though,
players
that it's
need
six
that
o'clock.
energy.
It's 6 o'clock though, so I don't know how full it's going to be because it's going to be tough for people to
Mm,
get there. I don't know why they've scheduled. We're the only game on. I don't understand why they've
yeah,
scheduled it
it's
like
strange.
this, but it's yeah. I did mention it in the tweet that the atmosphere. Um, it's an early kickoff, and I don't really understand why they've done this. And it's going to be interesting to see how many people make it. And given the Emirates this season, look, I think that it's going to be bouncing even at 6 o'clock in the in the early evening. Let's
You
put it
can
that way.
barely get
So
tickets, even to matches like this. So I have no
mm.
doubt. But also Ruud van Nistelrooy, whenever he comes, it's going to be an issue. I think like there's a lot of bad blood and there's a lot of history. Mikel was talking about Pizzagate for all you older fans. I don't know if anybody can remember that stuff, but that was fun. And not even just Pizzagate, but this entire thing with Martin Keown. We had our own Martin Keown moment this last time in the Premier League. So why not follow that up with the man himself? Who caused everything. But look, I'm excited for the game. I'm excited to see everybody. I'm excited to see Chavi Simmons and Gakpo as well as Sangare because I think there's been a lot of shouts for him as potential DM prospects or somebody to look at for ourselves as the anchor position. But I have a feeling that the boys will get it done really well. I said 3-1. You've got a 2-0. Do you have any idea on goal scorers at all?
You know what? I'm gonna go Fabio and screw it. Reese. Go on, Reese, for the narrative. Reese, come on, do it.
I agree. I think Vieira is going to score one, but I also think that Eddie's going to get two. I think Eddie's going to have a really good game. I think that Eddie he needs one, but I also just think that him and Reese will actually form a pretty good connection. But I see him scoring for some reason. I think he's going to be up for this game. But guys, thank you so much for sticking with us. That'll be our preview for PSV. We'll catch you guys probably on Friday to look at the review because the games are
Mhm.
coming still thick and fast. We've still got one on Southampton to preview as well on the weekend, which we'll probably do on Saturday at some point. But thank you so much, everybody. In terms of all the socials, you guys know what to do. I'm at George V underscore AFC. Curran's at Curran BOP. And of course, Chris, he'll be back soon. He's at CKFTBL. That's at CKFTBL. And you can find us Ball Over Passion on YouTube or at BOP Footy on Twitter. So, guys, make sure you guys like, comment, subscribe, hit the bell for notifications to know when, in fact, we do upload. But thank you so much for everybody sticking with us. And we will catch you guys on the next one. Peace, everybody.